We're going to be looking at the shape builder tool and the live paint bucket stuff for this particular video. So I have just a couple really simple shapes built. I'll do the first one here. So the shape builder tool, well, I like it a lot. There's sometimes faster ways to do things. So I usually will have the Pathfinder up and available, and it can do a lot of really simplistic things. So the first thing I'm going to do is just overlap this circle with this polygon, just so you can see the basics. So you do have to have both selected. You can use your shift key to do that, or I just simply use a regular selection tool and make sure that I pull, and when I drag it, the selection, it selects both items. So the first one simply unites. It's pretty simplistic, makes it all one shape. The second one minuses the front, and for this one you will, this one I happen to know I just built the blue one, so it's sitting on top of the pink one, but if you weren't sure, you'd have to, for some reason, if your shape was see-through or who knows why, you should always be able to probably tell what shape is in front of another. But if you can't, you can go over here and double check, and you can either like move them on top of each other, or you can go up to object and arrange them forward and backwards. Okay, so the first one now is the pink one's on top, so it's going to minus the whole pink part. For this one, it's going to take that area of intersection, which is this section here, and just allow that to be. And this one actually will remove or exclude that particular shape, so this now is empty. If I happen to go on top of something else, you can see through it there. Alright. And then there are more options down here. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can kind of work your way around those ones, but again, they're quite helpful. Now, to be honest, other than these four, I generally probably just use the shape builder tool, just because I like it and it's pretty easy to use. The first thing that you have to know is that the default for that tool is a plus key, which means it'll add shapes together. So I had covered this in the text demonstration, so this might seem familiar to you, but you can click, drag, and it will unite shapes for you. And you can unite all sorts of different shapes. But if you don't want something for some reason, then you need to hit the option key and hold it, and it changes the plus key to a minus key, and then you can do your own method of exclusion. Generally, I would say if you only have two objects, the Pathfinder works quite well. When you have more than that, it gets confused about which things should be sometimes excluded, or what's first and all that. So generally, if you have more than two, I will probably just go ahead and use the shape builder tool. Now, there is a little bit more down here other than the shape builder tool. It is fun. If you think about it, you can make that, sure that shape, for whatever reason, becomes part of this one. And again, for that one, I can just do the unite shape. But there's all sorts of craziness that can happen with these tools. And as you get used to them, you find even more uses for them once you understand what they can actually do for you. Alright, now the next one, it's related, but a little bit different. So for this one, I'm going to take a couple steps back, and so I have those shapes again that are separated. And for this one, for these live paint ones, if you see and pull down here, these are live paints. It's a little different than just the, in Photoshop, do you remember you had a paint bucket tool? This one is similar, but you have to do some work before that can happen. So for these ones, I'm going to make them all into a grouping. Now, we've talked about how Illustrator thinks of everything in terms of point to point to become a shape or a vector. This area, this time, with the live paint bucket, is the exception. But to do that, you first need to go to Object, Live Paint, and Make. And at this point now, it will ignore some of the vector attributes, and then you can paint things a little bit more freely. So from that, you can come down here and do Live Paint Bucket, and then I'm going to bring my swatches up and change my colors, and so you can see now what's possible. So it's going to be, working through the possibilities, and it's going to fill things in for me appropriately. And that little swatch thing up there, it kind of takes whatever color you want. If you want to move, maybe you click the wrong color, you actually can just use your arrow keys and it does a different selection for you. So that's all that means, and the reason that that's sometimes easier than doing a selection and then is that it's just easier to color larger projects, and where the vectors are overlapping, it will think of them the same way that the shape tool does. It recognizes the overlap rather than filling in the whole thing. It chose that to become a shape. To be honest, I don't use the live bucket tool because I just don't use Illustrator that way. Now another thing to think about is the live paint selection tool. And sometimes if you wish to maybe get rid of something, you can then get rid of it there. And so again, I don't use these very often, but it is a selection tool for my impression, for mostly deletion. Yeah, so that's that.